Ported throttle body for the Corvette C7. This one happens to be manufactured by Mamo, or ported by Mamo I should say, because it's a stock throttle body. So if you're curious on any gains or any benefits on what this part does once installed to a Corvette, stay tuned, because today we're going to find out. When you receive this throttle body in the mail, it comes in this normal box, which has another box inside. Let's just open it up right here. And there it is. So here we have ported throttle body, that is, in the sleeve for any drinks. I'm going to pull it out of the bag and we're going to give it a little inspection. So first remarks, it looks very nicely polished, very new. You can see right here, that's where it's been ported. We'll compare it later, but for now, we're gonna go do some runs with our stock throttle body. All right, so for these first runs or whatnot, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a 25, a 40 mile per hour pull, second gear pull, and that's it. We'll compare them. Let's do second gear 40 roll. We'll go over the pulls. I think we did a 25, 40 roll, and then kind of a launch type thing as well. So nothing too crazy. Just a quick disclaimer, guys. These pulls that I'm doing here, there's no scientific method that I'm using. There's no precise measurement that I'm using. I'm kind of just aligning the two videos. And as you can see, don't bash me too hard on my gear shifting, but I was kind of new to manual transmission. This is my first manual car, so my gear changes were not as quick, but I just wanted to do a comparison between before and after, see if there was a huge improvement. Usually you just see small gains or feel small gains, and yeah, we'll see what happens. So take it with a grain of salt. So for this first job, we're gonna need a flathead screwdriver. It's gonna allow us to take off the clamp that clamps that rubber piece of the intake to the actual throttle body. So get that loosened up and removed out of the way. In my case, I moved it down here under the throttle body straight down, and that holds it down. Next, we're gonna pull off the red clip on this connector that connects to the throttle body, and that allows us to push the tab in and then pull the connector off. Now we're going to loosen up these bolts. All we need is a 10mm. Now as you're removing these bolts, just be careful. Make sure you don't lose any of them or drop them. This can easily be done with a 1/4-inch ratchet, which is what I have here, a 1/4-inch extension, and then a deep socket, 10mm, and that should be enough to get all 4 bolts off. And it's off. So not too hard to disassemble it, but in case you're curious on how the intake manifold looks, where the throttle body bolts on, this is it. Not much to see. Just got to clean up that little seal right there later, but let's compare them. So here's the OEM to the left side. We have the Mamo ported throttle body on the right, but here on this stock one, you can see that big fat ridge right there. You know, it's kind of smooth on the bottom as well, but we do see that there's some restriction there. Seems like there's some oil here. Unfortunately, the car's only got 30,000 miles, but you know, this is a ported throttle body. And you can see that that's been rounded off. It's been smoothed out. So that'll give us some more smooth airflow and hopefully some, you know, kind of gains and benefits. So here they are. All right, so let's get to the install. So now I'm gonna clean this little O-ring and make sure that's all nice and clean. What I did to facilitate the install is I popped it back into that clamp, as you can see here, to kind of help me hold it as I screw in all the bolts. I'm gonna start with the first bolt. All right, so maybe don't do it like this. Be careful. Make sure you thread in your first bolt before you just stick it in there and then start moving things and then lose your bolt like I did. But luckily I found mine though.
This install is pretty straightforward. All you got to do is just basically replace all these 4 bolts. The hardest part, I think, is kind of maneuvering this intake tube around so it can give you enough access to install all 4 bolts. So she's now nice and tightened up. This is optional. What I decided to torque them down because I have torque specs for them anyway. So just to be safe, this is, you know, absolutely optional. You'll be fine probably hand torquing them. So the specification here is 88 inch-pounds. If you have your torque wrench, you can go ahead and set that up and then just give these all a nice torque to 88 inch-pounds and you'll be set. So now that we're all done, just gonna replace that intake piece on there. Make sure you tighten up your clamp. Lastly, we're gonna replace that connector back onto our throttle body. So remember that red clip goes towards the bottom of the car, and plug that thing in, pop that clip in, make sure that red clip is pushed in so that secures the connector and you don't have no risk of it falling off. And then you're all done. Now we're ready for a startup. Absolutely no problems with this throttle body on first startup. Everything looks good, absolutely no codes, no issues, so not bad. Now we got to go out there and try it out, see what happens. So I'm going to give my first reactions here, unedited. Right now I'm doing a voiceover, but I'm just going to show you what my first reactions were here. So.
Oh, okay. It didn't stutter as much as it normally does on takeoff. Feels good. I don't know, dude, it feels powerful. I feel like it feels way more jumpy on the throttle, more responsive, 100%. It could be placebo, like I said, but this is just what I feel. And we're gonna see in the numbers, maybe in the pulls, there's a difference. Maybe it's a notable difference, maybe it's exactly the same. Who knows, but we're gonna try to find something out. 25, let's go.
Guys, as you can see, we overlaid the 240 mile per hour pulls and the 25 mile per hour pull alone. Later on, I'll show you also a launch that I did. But yeah, like I said, take this with a grain of salt. This test is not scientific in any way. It's not even precise. This was just to see if there was, you know, any possible big gains that could overcome all the inconsistencies in this little test that I wanted to put together. But you know, they were almost exactly the same. If one looks faster than the other, it's honestly probably due to my driving experience and my driving method. My gear changes were, you know, they would vary so much. I wasn't as consistent. Along with launching at the right speed as well, I would vary sometimes a little bit. So this is all really dependent on a bunch of different factors. So we can't really truly call this. This is more just like for you to see what I experienced, and it's just a small test. So my initial reaction was a positive one. I think there's benefits to it, especially on the low end. You can definitely feel on a manual transmission when you're taking off from a dead stop. There seems to be a dead spot that people mention, and it is true. As soon as I started driving it for the first time, that's when I realized, I was like, wow, this is really, it changed that. It kind of eliminated almost completely. And I don't know, the car does feel a little bit faster. I do mention that as well. We're on our way to our first runs, but yeah, I think it's beneficial for those people that might want to get rid of that little dead spot in their car. But is it going to give you immense gains? I don't think so. I think if you're going to go for an NA build and you want the most airflow, you'd probably want to port it even more, or go for an even bigger throttle body, and maybe, you know, MSD intake manifold, atomic one, or port your intake manifold as well and get a tune. If you're not going for a tune and you just want maybe a little airflow and pair it up with an intake or something like that, this might be good for you. There was obviously no tune required. There's a little bit of change that's in the feel that I felt. So that's good. So like I said, if you want to, you know, stay relatively stock and do something very mild, you can go for this mod. But if you really want gains, I would say go for something else a little more aggressive with more porting, and yeah, pair it with something else like an intake manifold. So I'm going to roll over some clips of some other runs I did, including some pulls. So you're welcome to stay, but thanks for watching, and I hope If you have any questions or comments on this, go ahead and leave them in the comment section. And stay safe. See you soon.